By the time the flood came, the giant barrier was already waiting. A massive wall of earth, stone, and concrete stretched across Laguna like a new shoreline. On one side, dark water pushed hard. On the other, roads stayed dry. Homes stayed standing. And the flood moved, only where engineers allowed it to go. It looked impossible. But this did not begin with concrete. It began with silence. On day one, there was only raw land, trees bending in the wind, and soft ground beside the water. Then the machines arrived. Bulldozers cut the first path. Excavators opened a long trench through the dark soil. Workers lowered huge cement blocks and giant cement bags, one after another, to build a backbone strong enough to resist the lake. Day after day, trucks rolled in. Cranes kept lifting. The line in the mud grew wider, taller, and harder. Slowly, a flood-control super dike began to rise. But building a wall was not enough. The real problem was under the ground. The soil near the lake was soft, wet, and weak. If workers rushed, the whole structure could sink, crack, or slide. So the builders slowed down. First, engineers tested the earth. They studied the mud, the water, and the pressure below the surface. Then, they built the base in layers. Rock came first, then strong fabric, then more soil. Then heavy compactors pressed everything down again and again. Drainage pipes were added to guide trapped water out of the ground. Each layer had to settle before the next one could begin. It was patient work, quiet work. But this was the moment that changed everything, because once the foundation became stable, the super dike stopped looking like a pile of dirt. It started looking permanent. Now the super dike could rise, and once the foundation held firm, the pace changed. More trucks arrived, more cranes appeared. The wide earth embankment began to take shape like a man-made shoreline. Workers covered the outer slopes with rock to break the force of moving water. Crews placed giant cement blocks and heavy cement bags in the most exposed sections. Then came the hard parts inside the structure. Reinforced concrete walls, drainage chambers, water channels, steel gates. Piece by piece, the super dike became more than a barrier. It became a machine. A machine built to slow water, guide water, and release water at the right moment. From above, the project no longer looked like a construction site. It looked like a new edge of the lake. Then came the moment no structure could escape. The first real storm. Dark clouds closed over Laguna. Rain fell hard. Water from rivers, canals, and the lake began to rise at the same time. This was the test. Inside the super dike, sensors tracked pressure, water height, and flow speed. Operators waited beside the control system. Then the warning level was reached. One by one, the steel gates opened. Inner channels began pulling water away from low communities. Pump stations forced trapped water towards safe outlets. Rock armor broke the force of waves. Concrete chambers guided the flood through planned routes. Nothing was random. Every gate moved for a reason. Every channel had a job. And while the storm kept pounding the province, a strange picture began to appear behind the barrier. Roads stayed visible. Houses stayed dry. And the flood kept moving exactly where the engineers wanted it to go. When morning came, the answer was clear. The flood had reached Laguna, but the damage had not. From the air, the difference was almost unreal. Outside the barrier, brown water covered the low ground. Inside the protected zone, roads were still open. Homes were still standing. Fields were still visible. The super dike had not stopped nature. It had organized nature. That was the real achievement. Sensors kept watching. Gates kept adjusting. Channels kept moving the last of the floodwater back towards safe outlets. And as the sky finally cleared, the giant structure looked less like an emergency wall and more like a new part of the province itself. Quiet, solid, permanent. A line between chaos and control. What shocked people was not only the size of the super dike, it was the result. A flood arrived, and Laguna was ready.